No nanny could handle the millionaire's son until the inexperienced nanny did the impossible. A scream ripped through the quiet morning inside the Caldwell mansion on the outskirts of Seattle. "No! No!" The voice of a 4-year-old boy echoed down the glass corridors, shaking the walls as if the house itself could feel his pain. Inside the bedroom upstairs, toys flew in every direction. A model car smashed against the wall and shattered. Amid the chaos, Liam screamed until his tiny voice broke, his small fists trembling, tears mixing with fury that had no words. Outside the door, Rachel, the nanny hired just 2 days ago, pressed her back to the wall, crying. "Mrs. Brooks, I can't take this anymore," she whispered, shaking. "That boy? He's not normal?" Mrs. Brooks, the elderly housekeeper who had served the Caldwells for more than 20 years, sighed softly. "No one can, dear. You're the 6th to say that this month." A loud thud followed her words. "Go away, all of you!" Liam screamed from inside. "I don't need anyone!" Rachel flinched and nearly ran down the hallway. Mrs. Brooks exhaled deeply just as footsteps thundered from the staircase. Ethan Caldwell appeared, tall, broad-shouldered, his shirt creased, tie loosened, and exhaustion carved into his face. He had rushed home from a critical business meeting the moment he heard the call. Another meltdown. Rain clung to his jacket, and his eyes looked like they hadn't known rest for years. "What happened now, Mrs. Brooks?" and he asked. "She quit, sir. The boy's still locked inside." Ethan nodded slowly, his voice low. "That's the 6th one this month." "Yes, sir. None of them last." From the room came another crash. "Go away, I hate you." Ethan closed his eyes, resting his forehead against the door. "No, you don't, Liam. Daddy's right here." "You're lying. Mommy said you can't come in." The words froze him where he stood. It had been 2 years since Emma, his wife, died in a car accident, leaving behind a husband who still couldn't sleep through the night and a boy too young to understand death. Since that day, Liam had never spoken her name, not once, until now. Ethan's hand trembled as he touched the door. "You miss Mommy, don't you? I miss her too, but she wouldn't want you to hurt like this. She wanted you happy." Inside, the boy's sobs grew quieter, replaced by the sound of something fragile falling to the floor. Ethan tried the handle. Locked. "Buddy, open the door," he pleaded softly. "I just want to hold you." "Go away." Behind him, Mrs. Brooks whispered, "Sir, maybe call another therapist." Ethan shook his head. "I've tried 3. He screams, he bites, he runs. No one can reach him." Her voice softened. "You can't carry this alone forever, Mr. Caldwell." He turned to the window. Rain blurred the view of the garden beyond. Once, Ethan had been a man who solved every problem, a leader, a strategist, a man in control. But not here, not with this. "Maybe I need to find someone new," he murmured. "You want me to call the agency?" "Yes, anyone who isn't afraid of him." The rain tapped against the glass. From inside the room came a smaller, trembling voice. "You hate me? Daddy, you hate me." Ethan pressed his forehead to the door, eyes wet, voice breaking into a whisper. "No, son, I don't hate you. I just can't lose you twice." Outside, the rain fell harder, drumming against the glass as the sound of a child's sobs mingled with the quiet despair of a father too tired to cry. The next morning, in a small office building tucked between the gray streets of downtown Seattle, a long line of job seekers waited outside the employment agency. Sunlight filtered weakly through the dusty glass, falling over a young woman clutching a thin folder to her chest. Olivia Moore, 23, looked simple but neat, her hair tied back, her old coat clean but worn, her brown eyes carrying both worry and quiet determination. She'd been searching for work for 3 weeks. A cafe fired her for lack of serving experience. A grocery store refused her for not knowing the register system. An accounting office turned her down for no degree. At 23, Olivia knew exactly what it meant to be invisible to the world. Still, she refused to give up. When her turn came, she stepped to the counter. The woman behind it didn't bother to smile. "What kind of work are you looking for?" "Anything," Olivia replied. "Cleaning, cooking, selling, babysitting, whatever's available." The woman lifted her resume, a single page, and frowned. "No experience, no degree, no references." "I know, but I work hard. I learn fast." The woman studied her for a moment, then sighed. "There is one opening, but no one wants it." Olivia leaned forward. "What kind of job?" "Nanny, rich family, a 4-year-old boy, very difficult. 6 nannies quit in a month. They say the child isn't normal." Olivia smiled faintly, weary but sincere. "I like children." "Liking them and surviving them are 2 different things." "I grew up in an orphanage. Some of those kids were worse." The woman raised her brows. "You grew up in an orphanage?" "Yes, since I was little. When I turned 18, they let me go. I've been on my own ever since." Silence lingered for a moment. Outside, the wind blew through the narrow street, carrying the chill of last night's rain. The woman finally spoke again, softer this time. "That family is very wealthy. The father owns a big tech company. His wife died 2 years ago. The boy changed completely after that. They've tried therapists, specialists. Nothing worked." "Can I try?" Olivia asked. "You sure?" "Yes, if everyone else gave up on him, maybe he just needs someone who won't." The woman blinked, then, for the first time that morning, smiled. "You're different. All right, I'll call their housekeeper, Mrs. Brooks." She dialed quickly, exchanged a few words, then hung up. "They'll see you this afternoon. Northern suburbs. You're certain you want this?" Olivia clutched her folder tighter. "I need this job." That afternoon she stood before the tall iron gate of a white mansion wrapped in mist. It was vast, silent, and beautiful in a lonely way, like a castle no one lived in anymore. Her heart beat faster as she looked up at the house. She didn't know what waited beyond that gate, a job or something more. But she knew one thing. If she failed this time, she might have nowhere left to go. The gate closed behind Olivia with a metallic creak that sounded almost final, locking her away from the rest of the world. The stone path stretched toward a house veiled in mist, lined with perfectly trimmed hedges that looked more lifeless than neat. Her footsteps echoed softly through the still air, each one swallowed by the silence. The mansion loomed before her, its white walls cold as frost. Everything was spotless, polished to perfection, yet strangely dead. A house that had forgotten how to breathe. When she reached the front steps, the heavy wooden door opened, and Mrs. Brooks appeared, silver hair in a neat bun, calm but commanding. "You must be Olivia Moore?" "Yes, ma'am." "You're on time. I like that." Her tone carried a quiet weight. "Come in, but before you meet the boy, I need to tell you something." Olivia followed her inside. The hall was wide, the marble floors gleaming beneath soft yellow lights. Expensive paintings lined the walls, but none seemed alive. The air itself felt heavy, as if grief still lingered in every corner. Mrs. Brooks stopped midway and turned to her. "The child you're about to care for isn't like other children." "Why not?" "Because he lost his mother, and since then he's lost trust in everyone else." A sudden crash came from upstairs. Both women froze, looking up. Another thud, the sound of small feet kicking the floor, and then a wail, raw, piercing. Olivia's stomach tightened, but Mrs. Brooks only sighed. "You see? I warned you." Without thinking, Olivia followed the sound. Her heart pounded with each step up the grand staircase. The cries reminded her of nights long ago in the orphanage, comforting a younger child who cried for a mother that would never return. When she reached the second-floor hallway, she stopped at a white door with chipped paint. From behind it came a small, broken voice. "Go away. Everyone leaves me." Olivia placed her hand on the door. Her voice was barely a whisper. "I won't leave." Silence. Then a muffled question. "Are you the new one?" "Yes," she said softly, "but if you want, I'll stay." Footsteps approached from the other side. The lock clicked. The door cracked open just enough for two frightened green eyes to appear. A little boy with messy brown hair, tear-stained cheeks, and a wrinkled shirt stood there, small fists clenched in defense. Olivia knelt, lowering herself until her eyes met his. "Hi," she murmured. "I'm Olivia." He stared, saying nothing. His eyes weren't angry, just scared, the kind of fear born from too many goodbyes. "Aren't you scared of me?" he rasped. "No," she smiled, "because I don't think you're scary." For the first time, Liam's gaze wavered. "Everyone's scared of me." "Maybe because they don't understand how sad you are." "I'm not sad," he shouted, voice cracking, then broke into tears. "I just want Mommy." Something inside Olivia cracked too. She raised her hand, stopped halfway, afraid to startle him. "I know that feeling," she said quietly. "I lost my mom too. I thought nobody would ever want me again." He looked up, confused. "Really?" "Really, but I learned something. Sometimes people go away, but their love stays right here." She touched her chest. "In your heart." He stared at her for a moment, then opened the door wider. "You won't leave me?" She shook her head. "Not if you want me to stay." "Do you know how to play?" "I can make origami and bake cookies." His eyes lit up faintly, the first spark after a long storm. "You'll teach me?" "If you want." He nodded slowly and opened the door all the way. The room was chaos, broken toys, ripped books, crooked pictures, dents on the wall. But Olivia just smiled. "Looks like we have a lot to fix. How about we start together?" "I hate cleaning," he muttered. "Then let's make it a game. Whoever picks up the most wins." He hesitated, then for the first time in months, a fragile smile touched his lips. Down the hall, Mrs. Brooks stood watching silently. For the first time in a long time, there was laughter inside the Caldwell house. When Olivia stepped fully into the room, the air smelled faintly of dust and burnt plastic. Light poured through the window, illuminating the wreckage. Torn books, shattered toys, crooked drawings on the wall, and an old teddy bear ripped in half, lying in the center like a casualty of endless rage. Yet Olivia didn't flinch. She walked in as if it were just another messy room, not a battlefield of grief. Liam stood by the door, fists clenched, wary eyes following her every move. Olivia bent down, picked up a broken toy piece, studied it, then smiled. "This can be fixed." "No, it's broken." "It's not," she said gently. "Just needs some glue. And patience." He frowned. "Things that break don't go back the same." "Maybe not. But sometimes," she said softly, "things become even more special after they've been mended." Liam said nothing. Olivia began picking up more pieces, her hands moving slowly, carefully. "Want to help me?" "I don't know how." "That's okay. I didn't either until someone taught me how to start over." He hesitated, then shuffled closer, picking up a small shard of plastic. "What are you going to do with it?" "We'll glue it," she replied, sitting cross-legged on the floor, pulling a small tube of glue from her pocket. "I always carry one. Habit." "You break things a lot?" "No," she smiled. "But I know some things are worth fixing instead of throwing away." Liam sat beside her, keeping a small distance but watching closely as they worked. After a while, he asked quietly, "Do you have kids?" "Not yet," she said. "Then why are you doing this?" Olivia looked up, her voice calm. "Because I know how it feels to be left behind." "You were left too?" "Yes, when I was little, but I learned you can't wait forever for someone to come back. You have to learn to live." The boy lowered his gaze, fingers tracing the glued crack in the toy. Silence stretched between them, soft and fragile. Then he whispered, "Everyone leaves me. They're scared of me. I'm not." "Why?" "Because you're not scary. You're just hurting." He looked up, eyes shining. "Do you hurt too?" Olivia smiled faintly. "Of course, but pain only stays if you let it." The door creaked slightly. Mrs. Brooks appeared in the doorway, ready to speak, but stopped when she saw the boy smiling. A small, trembling smile, like sunlight breaking through clouds. She stepped back quietly, closing the door again. An hour later, the room looked different. The chaos was gone, toys neatly stacked, a few broken ones glued together. Liam held up a toy car. "It's still cracked here." "Yes," Olivia said, pointing to the silver line. "But see, even scars can be beautiful in their own way." He nodded, his eyes brighter now. "You're weird." "And you're special," she replied, and they both laughed softly. From the hallway, Ethan stood frozen. He had come home earlier than usual, intending to check on his son when he heard laughter, a sound he thought he'd never hear again. He peeked through the crack of the door. Liam sat on the floor beside the young woman, quietly fixing his toys, his face calm, his eyes alive. Ethan didn't say a word. He just stood there, still as stone, watching like a man witnessing his first miracle. Outside, the rain had stopped, and warm light spilled through the window, falling on the two figures amid the wreckage, learning together the simplest truth of all, that even broken things can be mended if someone chooses to stay. When Ethan walked away from the hallway, he was still stunned. His son's laughter echoed in his mind, warm, unfamiliar, like a song he used to love but had long forgotten. He stopped at the bottom of the stairs, unable to move, feeling as though he had just witnessed something impossible. The same boy who once screamed and destroyed everything was now quietly fixing toys with a woman he'd only met that morning. That night, for the first time in 2 years, Liam slept peacefully. No crying, no pounding on the door, no nightmares. Only the steady rhythm of a child finally finding rest. Ethan stood outside the room, listening to the sound of breathing, feeling something inside him ease for the first time. In the dim glow of the nightlight, his son's small face looked calm, and Ethan knew something had changed. The next morning, when he went downstairs, he saw Olivia in the kitchen, her hair tied neatly, an apron around her waist as she sliced bread with quiet focus. Mrs. Brooks stood beside her, pouring coffee, smiling as she watched. "He's still asleep," Olivia said when she noticed him. "Probably tired from cleaning his room." "He slept through the night?" Ethan asked, barely believing it. She nodded. "Yes, I think it's been a while since he did." He didn't know what to say. Instead, he sat down and simply watched her move. Every gesture was calm and natural, unhurried. The kitchen, once silent and sterile, was now filled with the sound of clinking dishes, the smell of fresh bread, and a warmth he hadn't felt in years. When Liam came down, his hair messy, eyes still heavy with sleep, he didn't shout for his mother or throw anything. He just looked around and saw Olivia. "You're still here?" "I told you I would be," she said, smiling. The boy paused, then sat at the table. "I want cookies." "Then we'll bake some after breakfast." Ethan stood nearby, watching. He couldn't look away. Liam spoke, Olivia listened, nothing forced, nothing strained. She wasn't trying to manage him like others had. She understood him. And somehow, that made all the difference. By mid-morning, the house had changed. Laughter mingled with the smell of sugar and butter. The once cold halls now carried the warmth of life again. Ethan stayed in the living room, simply listening. Each sound of his son's laughter was a small ache in his heart, a beautiful ache, because it reminded him how long he had left the boy alone. At noon, as Olivia carried a tray of cookies upstairs, Ethan called softly, "Olivia, may I ask you something?" "Of course, Mr. Caldwell." "How did you make him trust you so quickly?" Olivia thought for a moment. "I didn't try to make him trust me. I just listened. Sometimes children don't need someone to fix them. They just need someone who won't leave." Ethan fell silent. Her words cut deep. Love, he realized, didn't need to be perfect. It only needed to stay. "Thank you," he murmured. "You don't have to thank me, sir. He just needs time." "And you?" She smiled. "So do I." That afternoon, they baked cookies together. Olivia tied an apron around Liam, teaching him how to roll the dough. He spilled flour on the counter and laughed, a sound so pure Ethan couldn't help but laugh too. Olivia looked up, surprised. Their eyes met, and for a fleeting second, something warm and unspoken passed between them. For the first time in 2 years, Ethan felt warmth again, not from success or wealth, but from the simplest thing of all, his son's laughter. Since that afternoon in the kitchen, the Caldwell house had felt alive again. Mornings no longer began with screams or breaking sounds, only laughter. Sunlight filtered through the tall glass windows, spilling over the marble floor where Olivia walked softly, carrying a breakfast tray. She turned every part of the day into a game. Breakfast became an adventure. "Captain Liam, today we must find the treasure hidden beneath these pancakes," she said, eyes gleaming. The boy laughed. "What's the treasure?" "A full smile," she replied, and they both laughed as he took his first bite. Bath time turned into an ocean. "Little fish must clean the sea so it sparkles in the sun," she said, running water over his hair. Liam splashed, laughing. "I win, Miss Olivia. The fish won." Then the mama fish lost. She sighed dramatically, and he laughed louder. Brushing teeth became polishing the dragon's armor. "If the dragon doesn't brush, his scales lose their shine," she said with mock seriousness, making Liam laugh so hard he could barely spit out the foam. Day by day the tantrums vanished. Liam ate better, slept peacefully, and began to draw again. Bright pictures filled with sky, ocean, a tall man holding his hand, and a curly-haired woman smiling beside them. Ethan often watched from the doorway, saying nothing. He didn't want to disturb what felt sacred. Every time he saw his son smile, something tightened in his chest. He couldn't remember the last time Liam had laughed so freely, probably before Emma died. And now a stranger had brought that light back. In the afternoons, they worked in the garden. Olivia taught Liam how to plant flowers. "Soil is like the human heart," she said, patting the earth. "If you care for it, it blooms." Liam pressed the soil around a small sprout. "Then I'll take care of it every day." From the balcony, Ethan watched. He couldn't hear their words, but he could feel the gentleness spreading through the garden. Something soft and alive, something he'd forgotten existed. Time passed. The house changed color. The scent of cookies lingered in the halls. The piano in the living room played again, not to fill silence, but as a voice of life. Mrs. Brooks often watched Olivia and whispered, "God bless that girl. She carries miracles in her hands." At night, Olivia sat by Liam's bed, singing. Her voice was soft, clear, and aching with memories. "Where did you learn that song?" he asked sleepily. "At the orphanage," she whispered. "When I was little, I sang it to the younger kids so they could fall asleep. I like it? So do I. A pause. Then Liam's voice came again, small but certain. Miss Olivia? Yes, sweetheart? Will you be my mom? Olivia froze. Her heart stopped for a moment. She turned away, tears filling her eyes. I can't be your mother, Liam, she said, her voice trembling. But I can stay. I can care for you. I can love you, just a little like she did. Like a mom? Maybe. A little? Outside the door, Ethan stood motionless. He had heard everything. Half of him wanted to cry. The other half wanted to smile. He was happy that his son could finally love again, yet something ached when he heard that word. Mom. Emma would never return, but in that soft lullaby, in Olivia's gentle voice, there was something that felt like life again, something he thought he'd lost forever. That night, before going to his room, Ethan paused by the door. Through the small crack, he saw Olivia stroking Liam's hair, humming the same lullaby. The room glowed warm in amber light. Ethan whispered, barely audible, "Thank you for bringing laughter back to this house." One bright Monday morning, sunlight slipped through the curtains as Ethan answered a call from Liam's old preschool. The principal's voice was calm but hopeful. "Mr. Caldwell, we've heard Liam is doing much better. If you're open to it, we'd like to try welcoming him back, slowly, at his own pace." Ethan paused, unsure what to feel. "Thank you," he said after a moment. "I'll discuss it with Olivia first." When he told her, Olivia set her teacup down and smiled. "I think Liam's ready, but just in case, I'd like to go with him for the first few days." "You think he'll agree?" "That boy's braver than you think." Over the next few days, she prepared him gently. She taught him how to breathe whenever fear crept in. "Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and think of something that makes you happy." "Like what?" he asked. "Chocolate chip cookies," she said with a grin. "Just imagine the smell of fresh cookies, and your heart will stop racing." Liam puffed his cheeks and tried. After a moment, he laughed. "It really works." On the first day back, Ethan drove slowly, as if afraid to arrive. Liam sat in the back seat, clutching his teddy bear, silent. Olivia turned around, touching his hand. "You remember our trick?" He nodded tightly. "Think about cookies." "That's all you need today." The school gate opened to the sound of children playing. Liam held Olivia's hand tightly as they walked inside. His eyes darted around nervously, but he didn't pull away. The teacher knelt and smiled. "Hi, Liam. We've missed you?" He whispered a greeting, small but sincere. After a moment, he said quietly, "I'll try not to be scared today." From the hallway window, Ethan and Olivia watched. An hour later, laughter spilled out of the classroom. When the teacher stepped out, her eyes were glistening. "Mr. Caldwell," she said softly, "Liam played with the others today, and even comforted a classmate who was crying." "How?" Ethan asked. "He told the little boy, 'Think about chocolate cookies. It'll be okay.'" Ethan smiled, eyes wet. As they left the school, he turned to Olivia. "You didn't just save my son," he said quietly. "You gave him his childhood back." Olivia lowered her gaze. "I only reminded him how to smile again, Mr. Caldwell." "And me too," Ethan whispered, barely audible. On the drive back from school, Liam's laughter filled the car, light and clear as summer wind. Ethan drove slowly, glancing through the rearview mirror at Olivia, sitting beside his son, smiling with a tenderness he couldn't describe. In that moment, he realized something small yet undeniable. He was seeing her differently. Since Olivia came, the house had changed, and now, maybe he had too. Every time she entered a room, his heart seemed to pause. He found himself listening for her laughter, noticing the way she tilted her head when talking to Liam, the way the afternoon light caught her curls and made the air around her glow. One afternoon, as Ethan reviewed files in the living room, Mrs. Brooks brought him tea, smiling mischievously. "You've been smiling more lately, sir." "Have I?" he asked, caught off guard. "Yes, every time Miss Olivia walks by." He said nothing. She chuckled softly. "Seems this house isn't the only one she's brought back to life." Ethan looked out the window. In the garden, Olivia was showing Liam how to water the flowers. He didn't need to answer. Mrs. Brooks was right. Something inside him was softening, something he thought had died the day Emma did. That evening, during dinner, Liam looked up mid-bite and said innocently, "Papa, if Olivia were my mom, everything would be perfect." The room froze. Olivia's spoon stopped mid-air. Ethan looked at his son, then at her, seeing the faint blush rise on her cheeks. "Eat your dinner, Liam," he said softly. "You're making Miss Olivia shy." "But it's true," the boy said. "She makes me happy like Mommy used to." Silence settled over the table. Olivia forced a small smile and stood to clear the plates. Ethan said nothing, but his chest felt tight. Gratitude tangled with fear. Later that night, after Liam had gone to bed, Olivia stayed in the kitchen, tidying up. Ethan walked in, meaning only to say good night, but stopped when he saw her by the window, bathed in moonlight. Her face was peaceful, gentle, with a fragile calm that drew him closer. "Today went well," he said quietly. Olivia turned, smiling tiredly. "He's braver than I thought." "Because of you," Ethan said, stepping closer. "You didn't just save my son, Olivia. You saved me too." She blinked, startled. "You shouldn't say that." "It's true," he said softly. "Before you came, I was only existing. Now I'm living again." The space between them seemed to disappear. Moonlight spilled over their shoulders. Their breaths mingled. Ethan reached out, brushing a loose curl from her cheek. Olivia didn't pull away. She only looked up, eyes trembling with fear and something deeper. "Ethan," she whispered, calling his name for the first time without the formality. He smiled faintly. "Olivia?" For a heartbeat, they leaned closer, almost close enough to touch. Then she stepped back, her voice barely steady. "I shouldn't." "I know," he murmured. They stood in silence, the clock ticking, the night wind whispering through the open window. The words remained unspoken, but both knew nothing would ever be the same again. It was a quiet Saturday morning. Olivia was teaching Liam how to fold origami at the breakfast table when the sound of a car engine echoed through the driveway. Mrs. Brooks glanced out the window and sighed. "Mr. Caldwell didn't mention we were expecting visitors." Moments later, a sleek black Bentley pulled up. The door opened, and Margaret Caldwell, Ethan's mother, stepped out. The air seemed to change around her, poised, powerful, her gray dress perfectly pressed, pearls gleaming at her neck, eyes sharp as glass. When she entered the house, even Mrs. Brooks lowered her voice. "Good morning, Mrs. Caldwell." Margaret gave a curt nod. Her gaze swept over Olivia like a cold blade. "And this is Miss Olivia Moore," Mrs. Brooks said. "She's been taking care of young Liam." "Ah," Margaret replied coolly. "The help." Olivia bowed slightly. "It's an honor to meet you, ma'am." "Is it?" Margaret's tone sliced the air. "People in service should remember their place, Miss Moore." The words hit like stone. Liam looked up from his paper crane. "Grandma, Olivia isn't the help. She's my mom." The room froze. Olivia's breath caught. Ethan, just walking in, stopped at the doorway. Margaret turned sharply toward him, fury in her eyes. "Did I just hear that right, Ethan? You let your son call the maid his mother?" "Liam," Olivia whispered. "Sweetheart, don't—" "But you are my mom," the boy insisted. "You love me, you tuck me in, you sing to me. That's what moms do, right?" Margaret laughed coldly. "Impressive, moving up from nanny to mother in record time." "Mrs. Caldwell, that's not—" "Oh, spare me," she snapped. "You think I don't know your kind? Pretty, young, innocent, the perfect bait. You're just another gold digger, Miss Moore." Olivia's face drained of color. Ethan stepped forward, but Margaret cut him off. "Do you even know what people are saying, Ethan? The billionaire and the babysitter. You're making us all a joke." "Enough, Mother." Ethan's voice was low, tight. "I don't care what they say." "You should," she hissed. "Think of your reputation, your company, your son." Olivia lowered her head. The shame burned too deeply. That night, long after everyone had gone to bed, she quietly packed her things. Mrs. Brooks found her by the stairs. "You're leaving?" "I have to," Olivia said softly. "I can't make them suffer for me." When Ethan woke the next morning, Mrs. Brooks told him she was leaving. He ran downstairs and found her by the door, suitcase in hand, eyes red from crying. "You're really leaving?" he asked. "I should," she said. "Your mother's right. I don't belong here. I'm just the help." "Don't say that," he said, stepping closer. "No reputation is worth more than my heart." "Please, don't make this harder," she whispered. "I have to," he said firmly. He took her hand. "You healed my son, Olivia. Now heal me?" Her eyes filled with tears. "Ethan, marry me?" His voice trembled but didn't falter. "I won't lose you, not even if the world laughs." Liam, who had just come down the stairs, froze. "Papa, are you asking Olivia to be your wife?" Ethan looked at him, then at her. "Yes, because both of you brought me back to life." Tears streamed down Olivia's face. She nodded, unable to speak. Ethan pulled her close, and Liam shouted with joy, "Olivia's going to be my real mom." Sunlight poured through the windows, chasing away every shadow. In a house once filled with grief, 3 broken hearts had finally found their way home. Weeks later, morning light spilled across the Caldwell garden, turning the roses gold. The white blossoms swayed gently in the breeze. In the middle of that garden, a small wedding took place. No grandeur, no glitter, just soft music, warm smiles, and hearts that truly meant it. Olivia wore a simple cream dress, her hair loosely tied, eyes bright with tears of joy. Ethan stood before her in a light gray suit, his gaze so tender it made her breath catch. Mrs. Brooks was the first to offer her blessing, her voice trembling. "You two have turned this house into a real home." Margaret wasn't there. She had business, though everyone knew why. But her absence couldn't dim the happiness. Ethan's friends, once doubtful, now smiled as he took Olivia's hand and spoke his vows. "You didn't come to replace anyone. You came to bring life back, and I promise, from this day on, you'll never walk alone again." Liam was the ring bearer, carrying a small pillow with the rings as he walked proudly down the aisle. When Ethan kissed Olivia's forehead, the boy shouted with delight, "Now I have both my mom and dad." Laughter echoed through the garden, blending with wind, leaves, and the quiet hum of joy. Their honeymoon wasn't in Europe or some luxury resort. It was a small trip to the seaside nearby. The 3 of them together. A honeymoon with a kid. Liam built sandcastles. Olivia took photos, and Ethan sat watching, realizing for the first time that he finally had everything money could never buy. Peace. 2 years later, on a spring morning, Olivia lay in a hospital bed, one hand resting on her round belly. Liam sat beside her, eyes wide. "Is the baby kicking, Mom?" "Yes, he's probably saying hi to you." The door opened and Margaret entered. She was still elegant, still proud, but her eyes had softened. She walked over and rested a hand on Ethan's shoulder. He looked at her and said quietly, If it weren't for Olivia, you wouldn't have this family anymore." Margaret hesitated, then nodded. "She's better than I thought." Olivia smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. That afternoon, sunlight slanted through the hospital window. The family laughed as Liam pressed his ear to his mother's belly, listening for his brother's heartbeat. Ethan wrapped his arm around Olivia, kissing her forehead. She looked out the window, at the sky, clear and endless, and thought, "Family isn't made by blood, but by love." And in that moment, she knew they had finally become one.